All right. Hello, everybody. I am Mary Walter. Welcome to Life with Mary Walter. Now, normally this is a non-political podcast, but it's been a crazy day today. So we're going to start with a little politics. Before we start, though, before I introduce my guest, some of you may already know her. I would like you to please subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate that. Also, please like the podcast. We appreciate that so much. You can go to YouTube and just look for Mary Walter or Mary Walter Radio, and it'll bring you to the page with the podcasts. And feel free to go back and watch them. Also, they're available on Apple Podcast and Spotify for the audio download, which I try to do as soon as I get off the air. So I try to get that up right away. A big shout out, of course, as always, to EB for doing all of my graphics. Appreciate you. His son, Zach, who is our absolute #1 fan. Zach is the best. And to my friend Pete, who sends me a bunch of topics. Pete is fantastic. He's like my producer, which I don't have. So Pete kind of fills in the role there. So this lovely, beautiful woman is a wonderful person. I met her at CPAC, and we just hit it off with her friend Steph and Gail Trotter as well. And she is a criminal defense attorney. She's also with the Republican National Lawyers Association out of Columbia, Missouri. It is Jennifer Bukowsky. Jen, how are you?
Great, Mary. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. So our friend Gail Trotter, do you know where she is right now?
Is she at Mar-a-Lago?
She is.
Oh my gosh. I wasn't
gonna,
important enough to be invited down there as a loyalty test. But
I said to her, I said
down there as a journalist or down there as a guest or what?
As a guest, because I was gonna have her call in, right? I was gonna say, oh, we'll call in, right? But it's hard to do a phone call into this format of show. Yep. Mm-hmm. Can't do that. And she's like, I don't know if I'll be anywhere where it'll be quiet enough. So I said, well, how did you get invited? She goes, I just got a random email. I'm like, what? How do I get on the random email list for that? Like, how do I just get on that random email list?
That's cool. It'll be an interesting night down there for sure.
It's so cool, and I'm not jealous at all. But one of these days we got to get you, her friend Stephanie Bell, who I also met at CPAC, who is amazing, who's on a radio show. She's also a lawyer and also does a morning show in Missouri as well. The four of us need to get together down at Mar-a-Lago. We got to figure out how the four of us can get invited down there, because I think it will be an unbelievable time if we could pull that off.
Yeah.
All right. So what happened today? 34 indictments against Trump, 34 felonies. And I'm not a lawyer, but I did watch Bragg's little speech there. So I have a lot of questions for you. But from where you're sitting as a criminal defense attorney, a very, very successful criminal defense attorney, if this were your client, is he in trouble?
This is a great case for the defense. I mean, it depends. I mean, they're leaving a lot of wiggle room for themselves, even though we finally have an indictment and we finally get to see what their theory of the case is. The indictment itself is still not specifying, like each count, it's like that it's a business record crime, apparently, falsifying business records for wanting up. What happened? Do you still have me?
You away. I know what things with StreamYard. I don't know what's going on with them, but we'll muddle through. I'm sorry. 34 felonies. Okay. Go ahead. Great defense. Great case for the defense.
I think so. I mean, he's leaving himself a lot of wiggle room still, because all of these falsifying business record counts say that he falsified business records in furtherance of another crime. And one of the first questions at the press conference to Bragg is like, why aren't you saying what crimes? And if he committed other crimes that he falsified business records for, why don't you charge him with those? And he's like, well, New York law doesn't require me to say what crimes they are. I think the Constitution does, because you need to be on notice as to what the government thinks you did so that you can prepare your defense. I think they should file a motion for a bill of particulars to say, hey, what crime? But Bragg said, there are a few I mentioned that are their theories. He said the federal election law cap. He said a New York election law, which makes it a crime to conspire to promote a candidacy by unlawful means. Everything is vague in here. And so the unfortunate thing for Trump is that he can't get a fair jury in New York.
No.
And so, I mean, it's not a lock for the defense. And, you know, kudos to the defense team for joining this defense, because even though there's a lot for the defense to work with, because how are you going to say, for example, one thing that Bragg mentioned a couple of different times was that there's this plan for Cohen to record the payments as revenue on his law firm books. You're just going to rely on Michael Cohen's word, basically, that Trump knew how you were going to do your QuickBooks for your law firm. Give me a break. Like, that seems a little bit like thin to me. And yeah, I'm just stunned that this is the weak sauce that they're using their resources in their office with the crime problem they have to focus on. Nitpicky
Well,
stuff. And they charged each thing like uh, each payment, reimbursement payment for the 130,000 to Stormy Daniels. It happened over 3 different months. They charged 3 different crimes for each one because you entered it in the general ledger, the invoice, you put it in a trust account, and then you did a check and a check stub. I'm like, I'm surprised you didn't charge this check stub as a separate account too. Give me a break.
okay, so I have questions. All right. We know that both Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama were investigated for improperly recording election expenses. They both got fines.
Mm-hmm.
Why? And that to me, if he's charging under the federal election law in order to make it a felony, how does he have jurisdiction over that and not the feds?
Well, there's a couple of aspects to this. He has not specified. He said in his press conference, oh, he doesn't have to say what crimes, but some of them are New York election crimes. And that's by doing another wrongdoing in furtherance of like getting elected. And he mentioned the federal election cap. So I don't know if he's actually using the predicate underlying crime as a federal one or not. There was a lot of speculation as to that. It sounds like he's using the New York election law as the predicate, the underlying predicate. But I don't know how they're going to get around the statute of limitations. He's going to have a top team on this, and they're going to need to make them specify and take away Bragg's wiggle room by making them specify which crimes are you saying that I committed business records falsification and furtherance of. And
How
can I just
does,
say one thing? I forgot to say this at
of course.
the very beginning. So I was a Trump delegate in 2016, and then I had the privilege of going to like CPAC and seeing him, going to the NRA and seeing him, both before and after he was elected. And I always refused to chant "lock her up." The whole crowd would get. It's fun to say, we all hate Hillary. Lock her up. I refuse to do it because we do not live in a banana republic where we lock up the losers of presidential elections like other countries that are joke countries. But now apparently we're in a joke country where this is the new norm. And I think it's so short-sighted because how do they know? Like this was asked at the press conference of Biden today. Isn't he concerned that once he's the former president, that some Republican prosecutor, local prosecutor in the country will charge him with something now that this precedent is set?
Well, I think that they're not. They're not. I mean, do any of us really think that Republicans are suddenly going to grow a pair and start playing the game the way Democrats do? No.
No, but we shouldn't. I mean, Trump could have locked her up, but he didn't because that's not what we do. We're not a banana republic, and
How could
he
Trump
never
have
let
locked her?
those chance either.
How could Trump have locked her up? He doesn't control the Justice Department. The Justice Department is supposed to be, unpartisan, nonpartisan. They're supposed to not have an ideological bent. They're supposed to be justice. Justice is supposed to be blind. Trump couldn't just bring. And I got into this with somebody on Twitter. I'm like, Trump couldn't bring charges. Bragg could. Bragg campaigned on getting Trump, quote unquote, getting Trump.
Yeah,
And the people of New York voted for that, which is why Trump's never going to get a fair jury, never going to get a fair trial in New York. But Trump could never have brought charges. So Trump saying, lock her up, lock her up. He's
he never
advocating
led
for her to be
that I
charged,
saw.
held
Yeah,
accountable for her crime. So how it's not the same, right?
it's not the same in the sense that he didn't have direct prosecutorial power like Alvin Bragg does or Letitia James could in certain circumstances in New York, but he is the head of the executive branch, and the DOJ, whether they like it or not, falls under that branch, and he is the commander of that branch. So we don't have it set up in the Constitution where you have this extra branch that doesn't report to the executive. I mean, that's not the way it should be done. Even though they like to say that we keep things at arm's length or whatever to make everything look on the up and up and not have an appearance of impropriety, they do report to the president. The president appoints the attorney general. But yeah.
Right. Okay. So the other question, I have a lot of questions. Sorry. I
Okay,
was
I'll
writing.
keep my answer snappier.
No, you're fine. I love the answers. Please. I wanted to get you in and out in 10 minutes for you, not for me.
Oh,
So,
I'm good. So
okay.
fire away.
There's no gag order, which is great as long as Trump can hold his tongue.
Yeah, what are the chances of that happening?
Okay.
But
They
I
didn't.
am impressed that the judge didn't go straight off the bat with the gag order. But he's like having some semblance of we need to make things appear fair here because that would be a major problem. But he didn't rule it out either.
Right, right. Um, let's see. He said okay that he'd schemed with others to influence the 2016 election, right? So
Right.
my question is how is what Trump did illegal when Hillary, living in New York at the time, paid a foreign asset of what $1 million to get dirt and create a phony dossier on a political get dirt on a political opponent, create
Huh.
a phony dossier, and she logged that as legal expenses because she put it through her law firm for what 10 times what Trump paid.
Right.
So how is
And then
that
her
not a
and then her
crime?
lawyer gets acquitted with the DC jury, of course. But yeah,
Right.
that would be a that was certainly to influence the election. And I think that there's no parity here. There's no fairness here. Justice is not being applied equally here. And further, like, how is he supposedly going to interfere with the election or influence the election when he does it 2 weeks before? So his reporting documents that this would have had to go on, if you classify it as a campaign thing instead of like, I don't want my wife to find out what I did back in 2006 or my son to find out what I was allegedly doing around the time he was born. That's what's, the relationship with Stormy Daniels goes back 16 years to 2000 or 17 years, 2006 when Barron was born. But
So
he wouldn't have had to report. So 2 weeks before, Cohen pays Stormy 130K. That wouldn't have had to go on your campaign finance disclosures necessarily until afterwards. I don't think, unless it like crossed some threshold if they have it in federal law. But I think like that would how would that in any way influence the election? Like
also,
an outcome,
yeah.
like how are you going to say everything? I mean, the grab her by the P word thing had come out in October, and he still won.
So,
So
but here's the thing. John Edwards, though, was also charged with this with Riel Hunter, who was pregnant with his child at the time. And that was also for over $1 million, 10 times with Trump. And we decided as a country, because it went in front of a jury, like nothing, no mas. It was nothing. He didn't do anything illegal.
yeah, he got acquitted on one count, and they hung on the other count, and they didn't retry him for it. And I don't know if that was right of people to go after him for that. I don't like going after political opponents using the power of the prosecutor. I think it makes the entire criminal justice system suspect as unfair, and I think that it should be avoided. And that should be
Hmm.
something that prosecutors use their discretion to do. And the fact that
Yeah,
Alvin Bragg is abusing his discretion in this fashion to waste this amount of resources in a city that's riddled with crime is just really despicable, and he should be ashamed of himself.
agree. I just want to bring James in here. James has arrived. Hello, James. I don't know if you've ever
Hello.
met you. I
Hello.
don't know if you ever met Jen. She was here, I think, when you were out one time. So Jen sat in the seat for you.
Hi, Jen. How are you?
Hi, James.
All right. So, statute of limitations. I keep hearing that the statute of limitations has expired. How can this case be brought if the statute of limitations has expired?
Well, they can bring it, but the defense has to file a motion to dismiss it for falling outside of the statute of limitations. And we've been waiting to see like what is their legal theory so we can analyze whether statute of limitations, whether they'll have a strong case for the prosecutors or not on that. But even with this indictment, they're not specifying what crime he's like allegedly uh, concealing or committing by falsifying these business records, what purpose, which crime you're doing. So different crimes have different statute of limitations. Plus, Cuomo told the statute of limitations during COVID for a while. So it's going to be a complex, not not so black and white, I think. And I think
Right.
like a bill of particulars make them specify, take away Bragg's wiggle room and make him specify what you're saying he did wrong specifically so you can have fights about things like statute of limitations and so you can prepare your defense, quite frankly.
Well, I was going to ask you that question because they don't show again until they're not back in the courtroom until December 4th. So the game plan here
Really?
in yeah, December
Are you
4th.
sure?
Yep, I wrote it
That
down, December
surprises me.
4th.
Wow.
And the judge ruled, they said, well, Trump shouldn't have to be here. The judge ruled, no, Trump has to be here, which apparently is ridiculous for the next step. He doesn't need to be there. It's going to be a quick in and out of the courtroom. But my question are what I think they're trying to do, and I said this before, so they're going to drag this out forever. Are they waiting by saying, December 4th, putting it way at the end of the year, right, into campaign season? Are they doing that to see if they get a better case out of Georgia, a better case, or the better case out of DC with the documents? Is that what they're trying to do? Because this is the weakest case and they know it. So they push this off. It keeps Trump under a cloud of indictment until December. So the end of the year, it gets almost a year of a cloud of indictment, right? And
Yeah.
then they wait and see if they get something better. And then they drop this one.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, they're running out of you. Like, I think that they could have brought this one because of statute of limitations concerns. I mean, some of these things are April 13th, some of these counts of 2017. So I think that they do want to bring everything in the kitchen sink against Trump and see what sticks. And they brought the weakest one sooner because of statute of limitations.
But I thought the statute of limitations was already passed.
It should be. I mean, it should be for falsifying business records in and of itself. To make it a felony, to make it a 5-year statute of limitations, you have to have some underlying crime that has a felony, and they aren't specifying which ones those are, except he said that it could be a New York election law. So I apologize, I haven't had a chance to look at this New York election law and try to find which one Alvin might be referring to, because he didn't put the statute in the document, so we can't look that up. It's ridiculous. I've done over 1,400 defended individuals from the government and over 1,400 criminal cases, and I've never had one where they are not even telling you what statute that they're saying that your client violated.
Can I circle back to this for a second? So
Yeah.
is this a New York thing that you can somehow end run statute of limitations? Like I've never heard. I always thought that was like a hard line. Like statute of limitations means that's it. No.
Well, there's exceptions to them. Like some places, for example, if it's abandonment of a corpse or similar crime, they don't start the clock until the body's found.
Okay.
And then in this case with Cuomo, I've been hearing chatter about he suspended during the pandemic the statute of limitations. So because I guess the prosecutors couldn't come to the office and file charges, so they suspended the statute of limitations for a year or two. So there are different ways to toll. That means delay, like this, pause the clock, toll the statute of limitations, and the pandemic could have been one of them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I was watching Fox and I heard Brett Baer. I think he was talking to Britt Hume, and they were talking about the fact that no one was defrauded here. So who's the victim?
Yeah, that's the thing. You're falsifying in furtherance of to defraud or conceal the commission of a crime. I'm not sure if he's saying that the word defraud is in there, but it's defraud and intent to commit another crime. But they're like looking at making a different charge for each bookkeeping entry. And yeah, it's Trump's companies. Is he defrauding himself? Like he knows what that is. And then the plan, I think that's possibly why they're really trying to hang their hat. And he mentioned multiple times this Cohen was going to report the money Trump paid him as revenue to the New York taxing authority, because then that would be something unlawful that Trump may have known about and aided in. But how are you going to prove that Trump knew the details of how Cohen was going to keep his QuickBooks? And like you said, how do you know who is he defrauding when he writes his own general ledger entries and his trust account entries and his checkbook entries,
Yeah.
He's defrauding
Al says
himself.
that
He knows what that is.
Al says the legal theory they're using is because you cannot indict a sitting president. The statute of limitations is on hold while he was serving as president. So I don't know
I'm
if
not
that
sure
if that works
tolls
there.
it. Yeah, that could possibly be an argument that they can make for the statute of limitations being told, but then he's been out 2 years. I don't know.
Yeah. Pete
So
says the
maybe
DA
that's
said the
why they
payments.
rushed it now, so it doesn't hit 3 years for a misdemeanor. But I think they're trying to make it a felony, so they have that 5
They are.
years.
Yeah, they're trying to make it a felony. Pete says the DA said the payments went through 2017. If the statute is 5 years, then it hasn't expired. I thought the statute was 2 years. That's what I thought, but
Yeah, it is for
wrong.
what they're charging him with, but they have this theory, which has never been used before, that if what he's trying to do is a felony, then that tolls it. So that's not been tested before, and I think it's It would be remarkable if that holds up. But the rumor mill is that the prosecutors are confident in their argument about the statute of limitations.
All right. Okay. What about Stormy Daniels in 2018 said that she did not have an affair with Donald Trump, that he's a really nice guy. He was always super nice to her and everyone around them, and that she never had an affair with him, that that's a rumor and it's all BS. So does that affect any of this?
I don't know if it would. I mean, her name isn't even in this indictment, and it's all about like hush money. But I could, because like the whole concept is that it's so that you're covering up an extramarital affair. So if but didn't she at one point she was claiming that they had an affair though, right? I
But
didn't know that she had recanted that.
in
Huh.
2018, she gave an interview, and I saw it. I pulled it back up, and I want to say it was on USA Today, but I've got to look it up. And she said that she did not have an affair with Trump in 2018. Anyway, that being said, okay.
And he keeps saying, like, Alvin Bragg keeps saying that this like catch and kill scheme, like a scheme, it sounds like a
Yes.
strategy, like a campaign strategy or a plan. It isn't a substantive crime in and of itself to like catch and kill negative information about your candidate. I mean, that's something that politicians, their campaign people work on, is like mitigating any kind of negative opposition research that an individual candidate might have out there.
Well, they brought Pecker in, David Pecker, who was the CEO of the company that owned American Media, that owned National Enquirer, and they're the ones that bought the story from Karen McDougal, right? They
Right.
paid for that story, and they got it, and then they squashed it. That happens. What the heck is going on, James?
Sorry, I'm trying to make that not go on anymore.
That happens all the time. Those catch and kill stories, they do it for celebrities all the time. So
Yeah.
a catch and kill is not illegal in and of itself. They voluntarily took the money, right?
Right. It's
And
like a contractual thing. You agree, okay, I won't tell whatever news source about this. If you pay me money, I'll sign this non-disclosure.
so didn't Stormy Daniels violate that contract, and she took the money anyway?
Yeah, and then a whole bunch of litigation, and actually the Ninth Circuit ruled today like that Trump, she has to pay $130,000 more on top of $500,000 in legal fees because she lost that lawsuit with him.
Right. Right, but that was for defamation, right? Wasn't that a defamation lawsuit? She sued him for defamation, but he never sued her for breaking the contract. And I
Right.
think I would have loved to have seen him do that. So
He was
hush
busy at
payments,
the time being president.
yeah,
The
hush
guy can
hush
only do
payment,
so much.
hush payments are not illegal though, as far as I know, because doesn't Congress have an entire slush fund to pay off people who come after them with sexual harassment claims? We found this out during the Harvey Weinstein scandal, that there is an entire fund that they have for Congress to pay people who come up and claim any kind of sexual harassment against sitting congressmen and women, taxpayer dollars. So how is that not illegal?
Well, I mean, that's like a fund that goes to pay civil lawsuits that are brought against the government, and that's not atypical. Like the state of Missouri might have such a fund that we use when like our corrections officers get accused of not paying overtime or sexual, harassment or whatever on the job. There is different funds that are used to settle those lawsuits. But I think it's kind of a separate issue. It's also not illegal to agree with someone that you won't tell the press something or sign a non-disclosure in exchange for consideration, because she has a First Amendment right. And she's saying, hey, I will waive that right and agree with you that I won't say this. And he says, okay, I'll pay you money for that. And that is legal in America. But they're trying to criminalize this whole concept of catch and kill. That's not a substantive crime. It might not be like wholesome that you have so many things out there that you need to catch and kill, but it's not a crime in and of itself.
She didn't have to do it. According to Newsmax, since 1997, Congress has paid more than 17 million in settlements in hush money payments, according to the Office of Congressional Workplace Rights. Let's see. Individual offices on Capitol Hill do not pay the hush money settlements, but rather it comes out of a special fund within the Treasury Department that was created in 1995 under the Congressional Accountability Act.
Interesting. Yeah.
In 2017, at the time, Ron DeSantis, who was a congressman, introduced H.R. 4494, the Congressional Accountability and Hush Fund Elimination Act, that prohibits the use of public funds to pay awards and settlements, but the legislation was DOA and was never assigned to a committee for debate. So they're using our money as hush money payments to settle private matters in order to protect the institution of the U.S. Congress and its members.
Have you ever seen any of these congressmen who have a suit settled charged with a bunch of felonies because that was done to defraud people because they didn't report it as a campaign contribution? How are you going to prove that like he paid off Stormy as a campaign contribution and not because he didn't want his wife to find out? I mean, this is such a thin case. But he's in a very bad jurisdiction with very bad jury pool. So I don't know how it's all going to shake out.
So let me ask you, if he gets a jury of his quote unquote peers and they're back with 34 guilty counts in 30 minutes because it's not fair. He is up for over 100 years in prison. I think is
if they stack him, yeah.
If they stack him like that, obviously it would be appealed and it would just keep going. Does this eventually wind up at the Supreme Court?
Yeah, or could he pardon himself if he wins again? Yeah, I mean, it could eventually wind up there because it is an interest, like an issue of great national interest. If it says right here that if he has no prior felonies, the minimum is 1 to 3, maximum 1. This is just a Google thing, but yeah, it's that's worrisome too if he has an unfair judge, because the judges get to decide whether to run things concurrently at the same time or consecutively. Right. So when they're charging every single entry in the computer system, which Trump isn't typing stuff into his QuickBooks or equivalent, fancy equivalent, as a separate felony, and then you can put those consecutively one after the other. I don't think that they would do that. That would be just outrageous, but it's outrageous that this indictment was filed to begin with.
Right. Al says the payment started in 2017 and the 2016 election was over, so the whole case is flawed. Does he have a point? If the payment started in 2017, how does this influence the election?
Well, the case is flawed because, I don't think it would have gone on campaign finance reports if it was a campaign finance expenditure until after the election. And also proving that it's going to influence the election is a little bit of a stretch too if the payment's made just 2 weeks before the election. But the fact that he's reimbursing them in 2017, but it was before the election that Stormy was paid off. So I think, the prosecutor has that argument that the payment to Stormy was before the election, even though Donald Trump didn't reimburse Cohen until after, allegedly, for this stuff.
Eric Trump brought up a great point today. He said, the city of New York is spending over $2 million in one day because of this circus for a $136,000 payment.
Yeah, 130. Yeah, that's a good point. Right? I mean, traffic is locked up everywhere. You can't get in and out of the city because of, all the security and everything. And this is what they're spending their millions of taxpayer dollars on instead of going after violent crime and making the city safer. That is Alvin Bragg's job is public safety. I mean, that's the idea behind a prosecutor is you lock up people that are making the public unsafe. And I don't think that this is such a petty offense. And by the way, Alvin Bragg ran on the idea that we aren't going to keep locking up these petty offenders with few exceptions. This is an exception, something that could damage our constitutional republic going forward and turn us into a banana republic. Like I said, he should be ashamed of himself. It's terrible.
Yeah, but he's playing to the crowd. He's playing to the base. He's playing to the people who were on Twitter today going, yeah, this is great. I'm drinking. We're toasty. Do all stuff dude, do you have any idea what the heck you're celebrating? But they don't, apparently. I mean, they're just really, I don't know.
They don't see the slippery slope ahead of them when we weaponize things. And then, so someone from a red state with prosecutorial power, which we have how many people in just my state? We have 115 people that are prosecutors of areas in just the state of Missouri. Plenty of them are very red. Some of them probably 80% Republican. You want any one of them to be able to just start prosecuting Democrats that are elected or seeking office? It's just a bad practice. And then the public won't trust the criminal justice system where when you get charged based on your political party And then the verdict depends on the political party of the jurors. It shouldn't be that way. We should keep the politics out of it.
Well, but as I said, they know they're betting that Republicans will not return the favor in kind because
Maybe, yeah.
Republicans are not fighters. They're not going to play dirty. They take the high road. Well, we're above that, and I'm like, oh, no, stop
Yeah.
being above it. You got to
Well, we
start.
started doing some injunctions. We started getting some of those with like our attorney general, and I love it. I'm like, yeah, don't hate the player, hate the game, but win the game. Like, start doing national injunctions to them. I'm against national injunctions as a matter of policy. I think it's a bad idea for any federal district court judge to be able to like rule that our money is violates the ADA or the border opening it, closing it, all that, because they don't control like everything, but they can make it a national decision based on an injunction. But now we're filing for injunctions, and Remain in Mexico stayed in effect for a lot longer because we did. That came out of Missouri.
Oh, look at that. Show me.
Yeah.
Bill wants to know if this indictment can stop Trump from running for president.
No, and it doesn't stop him from being president, even if he's found guilty. I don't think that there's anything disqualifying in that. Or I don't think he could be prevented from pardoning himself if he wins. Actually, I wonder if the other candidates should, like, if DeSantis should come out and say, if he gets convicted, I'm pardoning him if I win. That's gonna be a question posed to all the candidates pretty soon. And I think the answer needs to be yes.
James,
it's only president, right, where you can be a criminal and get it. Like, it's not a congressman, senator, judge, but president. The way the framers were like, yeah, governor, right? Those positions they didn't think of high power, right?
It's a great check and balance between the three branches of government. Actually, it's been like kind of besmirched in recent years, but by the Clintons and people that are doing it in like kind of gray ways that look kind of shady. But it is meant and defended in the Federalist Papers by Alexander Hamilton. Federalist Paper 34 is a check and balance on government on the judicial branch. We, the people, entrust this to the executive, and they can be a check if the justice system is too harsh or if it gets it wrong. It's like a final safeguard if someone innocent is in prison. So it's not supposed to be a political favor. It's supposed to be, used sparingly and when it's warranted. But here I would say it's warranted because if this wasn't Donald Trump, no one's been charged like this before. This is like new ground legally that they're coming up with these nonsense theories. And it's all politics. Even the Democrats, there's a poll out today, 60% of Democrats all think it's all political.
Right, but they like it because it's their guy.
Yeah, but that's so short-sighted. And I
know.
refuse to chant, lock her up. Like, I would be the only one sitting in the crowd. But I've just, out of principle, refuse to chant that because we are not a banana republic. But apparently now we're becoming one. And it's it's a really sad situation. I'm trying not to get too mad about it.
since we don't know, since he hasn't told them what the crime is underlying, his legal team can't prepare anything because they don't know exactly what he's been charged with, right? They don't know.
They're giving themselves all kinds of wiggle room. They're like, well, maybe it's because you exceeded 130,000 is in excess of the maximum donation under the federal campaign contribution limits. Or maybe it's New York election law makes it a crime to conspire to promote a candidacy by unlawful means. There's another like vague term. The unlawful means, he said, the unlawful means is a statement planned to be made to tax authorities, which is like the Cohen was going to say it was revenue when it was really just like paying an expense. I mean, how deep in the weeds are we? We shouldn't be charging an ex-president or a presidential candidate unless they're like murdering someone, doing something really serious, not coming up with new theories of laws that are malum prohibitive, like illegal because we say they are, not because they're wrong in and of themselves, just nitpicky laws here.
So what happens?
I worry about this. Watch for this, Mary. So we didn't get a gag order yet, but now that he's been indicted, he's vulnerable to all kinds of process crimes, which is what the feds in particular love getting people on. Like tampering with the jury, harassing, like intimidating a judge. There's all kinds of substantive crimes that they can start tacking on here. So that's what I worry about is like they filed this and then it's a rope to hang himself by doing some other process crime and then they can convict him on that.
Yeah, and we all know Donald Trump, I love him, but holy God, sometimes I'm like, Stop talking.
Isn't he talking tonight? He's planning to speak tonight, right?
I know, which is why
that's one thing. Like, being his attorney would be so challenging because you'd have no client control.
Right. So we're going to be out of here in 10 minutes just so everybody can go watch what he has to say, because I want to do that. But you know, as far as tainting the jury, is there a person in this country who hasn't heard of Donald Trump and doesn't have an opinion about him?
No. Yeah. When they were talking about doing a mugshot, I'm like, if there's one person on earth that we don't already all know what he looks like and we don't need a mugshot for, it's Donald Trump. Give me a break. But yeah, everyone has an opinion. That's why the change of venue, that'll be trickier to argue, because like when I do change of venue motions in high profile cases with a lot of local media, I'm like, this jury pool is tainted because they've all heard about this case and they have opinions or they know witnesses or whatever. So we need to move it. Well, with this, everyone in the country has heard about this. So they're going to be like, yeah, where are you going to move it to where the jury pool wouldn't have heard about it?
Could they move it to upstate New York where it's more 50-50, where it's much more
Northwest little red patch, please?
Right. Yeah. As opposed to 8 in 10 who voted against Donald Trump in the borough of Manhattan, right? Or I think that was
actually talking to someone about that. That's not actually a legal ground, but I do think that's something that they should consider arguing, because you do have a Sixth Amendment right to a fair and impartial jury. And in this situation, when it's obviously so political, I think you should go to some sort of county where it's 50-50 Republican Democrat, because it's a political prosecution. But it's sad where we have to even consider moving things officially for that reason. But I think that there's a fair argument to be made that that's the only place he could get a fair trial is in a 50-50 county.
Hey, Jen, how do you pick a jury for somebody like Trump? Like, I mean, like you said, like, where's the impartial jurors? Like, what's even the questioning to figure out be a juror in a case like this? Or do you think, you don't know exactly, but
you're doing a strikes for cause method. That's what I do, because some people just try to advocate for their case in voir dire, but that's the wrong strategy, because some jurors like decided that your client was guilty 50 freaking years ago. Okay, they're going to come back guilty. Whatever. Your job is to find them and get rid of them and get them to say something that disqualifies them, so you don't have to use one of your peremptory strikes against them. So I would just go in and look for people who are against you by different questions. You engage with them, you talk to them, and you get them to engage with each other. Then you look for leaders that you don't know which way they're going, and you get rid of them next. And then, you're also protecting your people. So like, you aren't asking questions. If you think that they're on your side, you're not letting them talk at all. If you ever went on the jury, say as little as possible is all I can say, because then it's hard. They'd have to use their peremptory strike to get rid of you if you don't say anything like, I can't be fair, or this may affect my decision, and I couldn't just consider the facts and the evidence and the judge's instruction. I might consider something outside of that. Then you can be gotten rid of without them using up one of their peremptory strikes.
Right.
But the people that want on the juries always talk the most and get kicked off easily.
That was a great question. That was a really good question. I got into a jury box once in Trenton, down in Trenton, and as soon they asked what I did for a living, and at the time I was full time, and the defense went motion to strike, like out. They used one of theirs to dump me, get me right the heck off that jury. And I thought, oh, so your client's guilty. Like, that's
but they didn't get you to say anything like, I would hold it against the defendant if they didn't testify, because I wouldn't be able to separate that and set that aside. So they just wasted a peremptory. They didn't even get you to, I would have gotten you to say something that I could argue to the judge. She's already said something that shows she can't be fair, so get rid of her without using up one of my precious strikes.
They did ask, like, if anybody had a conflict with police officers, like anyone in the family, that kind of thing. And then they asked them to come up and talk to the judge about it.
Yeah.
But I didn't have anything like that. And so, I had to stand up and
next time go up and be like, I was pulled over. just so that, I don't know.
I don't want to get off the jury, because I kind of figure, God forbid, I need a jury of my peers. Karma's going to bite me in the butt, right? So
people ask me how to get out of jury duty all the time, and I'm like a little lecture about it. I'm like, it's your civic duty in a free country to serve on a jury. So if you get called, you shouldn't be trying to just get out of it, unless you have a really good reason for that particular time. But like, so many people are like, how do I get out of jury duty? And I'm like, you shouldn't. We need you. We need smart people in particular, people that can follow instructions and pay attention.
And in New Jersey, they pay you $5 whole a day. So,
wow. I think we pay like a $7.50 in Missouri. So wow, we're fancy,
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, the last couple of times I've gotten called, I haven't been able to do it because I was like working in Washington, D.C. I get called every 3 years like clockwork. Boom, 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 boom. Every 3 years, clockwork. And there's always a reason as to why last time I could have served, but my number was so high, I never got called. So
Yeah.
I did all right. I did all
Yeah.
right. So, well,
My husband
again,
gets called all the time too, because I think they draw from the voter record, property taxes, and driver's licenses.
yeah.
So if you're in all of those pools, you're more likely to get picked if you're in all of those pots.
I
I'm
believe
glad-
New Jersey. Go
I
ahead,
was gonna say,
James.
I'm sorry. I'm glad that one awful day of my life when I was just 18, one bad day in school, and I never go to jury again. Yeah.
Expungement.
James has a colorful past
So-
and interactions with the legal system in this country.
I'm famous.
Well, there's two types of people: those who have and those who haven't. And I like the ones that have, like, had someone they care about get screwed over, because it happens. And
I'm
that's
pretty-
the thing with these like political prosecutors. This isn't
Oh.
Alvin Bragg is not the first one. There's plenty of prosecutors that want to put a feather in their cap. Like Martha Stewart, that was one where it's just a prosecutor, Comey, right, that wants to be famous and wants to have that feather in their cap, or like they'll charge some rapper with something that the feds normally wouldn't get involved with, just so they can have bragging rights at the next prosecutors conference that they launched that prosecution. So this is hardly the first time that we've seen a prosecutor put their own personal career over the role, their responsibilities in their job of like public safety.
Great.
James, were you going to say something?
Oh, I was just laughing. I was saying I'm actually technically famous. I'm either, I always
Oh,
forget
you
how
are?
it works. I'm the first person ever charged with the school zone, or first person ever indicted on the
For
New
having a
Jersey
dime
school.
within a-
No,
Oh.
there's a drug-free school zone charge in New Jersey, and it had
Ah.
just started in 1991, a couple months before I was 18. And
I'm
then
sorry, that sucks. You should get that expunged. I bet they have that in New Jersey. I think they do.
I
Because
think
I was
it-
on an expungement subcommittee that we wrote the laws for Missouri. And I think that we learned about when New Jersey was doing, was that or a different reform thing? So you might be able to
Yeah.
get it wiped off now.
oh, so long ago.
Yeah.
But then you could be
1991.
on juries. Then you
Oh,
could
yeah, could be on
carry
juries.
rights and buy guns and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
no guns in
And
New
all
Jersey.
that. All right, we're gonna get going because we all want to watch what Trump has to say at 8:15. So we're
Yeah.
gonna get going here.
Well, thank
Jen,
you so much for having me. Yeah,
Thank
it's fun.
you. This was so informative. I
Yeah.
just love you coming on, and I really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much. You can follow her at Esquire on Fire, ESQ on Fire on Twitter. If you want to find more about Jen, and you do, because she's a lot of fun and she's great and she's super, super, super smart. And
Yeah.
so
We
happy
got to
to
get
call it-
together soon.
Yes, we'll have to
be
meet somewhere
together. For
here
sure.
in we'll
We'll
have
go
to
meet
in DC.
Gail over in Mar-a-Lago for a drink.
I
How about that?
know. The four of us have to get invited to Mar-a-Lago
I've
somehow.
gotten
We all gotta-
invited. The politicians invite you. Need to be in a red state. Then they all have events down there, and you get invited if you want to write a check.
Yeah, well, A, I don't have a job, so writing a check isn't necessarily an option. And B, I live in New Jersey, so there goes that. So you guys can go take pictures and tell me how
I
it
haven't
is.
been yet, but we'll bring you. If we decide to
all
make
right.
a run for it, we'll take you with us. All right,
All
Bert,
right.
thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye, Jen.
Bye.
See
Bye.
you. Okay, before we go,
Okay,
I have one thing to say to you.
go ahead.
Happy birthday!
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I bet you didn't know I knew.
You know the number, right?
No, I do. Is it 50 this year?
Mhm.
50. Congratulations. 50 is not so bad.
Yeah, it's no big deal. It's just a number.
Oh, Bill says this was the best show of the year. Thank you, Bill. I
Thanks, Bill.
appreciate that. Wow, thank you. So yeah, so I wanted to get happy birthday to James in there before we go. I wanted to play like the Beatles, but then the whole video will get thrown out
Oh,
because
yeah,
of
it's
copyright, and I wasn't
Mhm.
going to do that. And Jen is amazing, so I'm so
She's
glad she
great.
joined us. She was great, and that was a great question about the juries. I'm so glad you
Oh,
asked
nice.
that question. I didn't even think about that. So thank you for asking that question. And so what are you doing for your birthday? You going to celebrate this coming weekend, or you celebrated last weekend?
Friday, I'm going out with the family. We're going to go to there's a place called Hong Kong Fusion over here in Cherry Hill I love.
Okay,
Asian food cooked by a really amazing chef.
cool. Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad it is cooked by an Asian guy.
I think. I don't know what the chef is. I know the owner is, but I'll have to look back there and peek in.
It's kind of like when you go to Sandals, if you've ever been to Sandals, they have all these Alice, oh, here come the happy birthday wishes for you.
Oh,
there
thanks,
they are. When you go to Sandals, they have like all these different restaurants from all over the world, and every Sandals has a British pub, and there's a couple that have a steakhouse, and then everyone has a great like hibachi restaurant, and then there's one that has a Japanese restaurant, and they have all the different stuff, and each one is run by someone from that country. So
nice.
The British pub has a British manager. Like the Italian restaurant is run by an Italian chef. Like like they bring them in. They're off that. It's really.
That's
it's
awesome.
Yeah, it's really, really nice. I haven't been to one of the 2014. It's been almost 10 years since we've been to a Sandals. Well, you know, when we got married, we are going to do 1 year we go to like a beach, 1 year we go skiing, 1 year we go to a beach, 1 year we go skiing, and then it became go skiing, go skiing, go skiing, go skiing, go skiing. Because he kept saying, "You live at the beach. You live at the beach." It's like, damn it. Happy birthday to my favorite pain in the butt from Ringo. All right, guys, we're out of here. Go celebrate your birthday. We are going to we're going to say goodbye. We will see you on Thursday for Mary Walter Radio. And again, I'm sorry we talked politics this whole show. We didn't plan on it. We did plan on going into other things, but given what happened today, I think we kind of had to address it. So I hope you understand. All right. Wait, one more comment. Hold on, one more. Al says, have you ever been to couples in Jamaica? No, I have never been to couples in Jamaica. I've only been to Sandals around the world. So, and that's where I've been. Okay. Congratulations again. Happy birthday, dear. And congratulations on the big 5-0.
Thank you.
Bye.